All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, Team MacKinnon is set. Are we happy with it? Are we disappointed in it? Does it really matter? Are we looking forward to this? And we will get to our midseason grades, which we will finish everything off with our defenseman and our goalie, because there's really only been one that's been playing this year. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming out.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LLPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you are subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below, because when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, become a special insider, and we get your opinions on everything Avalanche, which we share on this very podcast. All right, sir. Let's dive in here. We got our midseason grades, which we'll get to. We'll finish up a little bit later on. But it was NHL All-Star Weekend draft night. And obviously we know Nathan MacKinnon was one of the captains. Cale Makar was his assistant captain with Tate McRae. And I can honestly say I have never heard of her before then, and that's not a knock on her. I just don't listen to that music, so I really didn't know who she was. But it was fun. It was fun to I think that was a good idea to include some sort of celebrity. Just gives it a little bit of something, because we know hockey players can be pretty dry. So bringing in some sort of celebrity, some funny men, musicians, I think that was the right thing to do. Give me your take. I don't know if you watched as much of it as I did, because you were playing dad. Not that I wasn't. But what was your take on the whole thing?
And I love that you mentioned like the celebrity picker, because it added personality that NHL players don't have, and they were honestly driving it. I think, honestly, my big takeaway from all of this, good idea, but let's never go back to an arena again. Put this in a room, a studio. I feel like the moment got to a lot of the hockey players, and they kind of got into their shell a little bit. I feel like if this is set up like a press conference and they did it that way, I feel like you would have got more back and forth. And there was not a audience of, they said a couple times sold out. We'll see. But
they said that was sold out.
Yeah. I heard that a couple times, like the sold out crowd is, that
was not
kind of, but I feel like that kind of took away from the moment a little bit, because on paper, this was a great idea. I like where this is going, but I just feel like put this in a room, and maybe you'll get more personality out of the personalities that make up the NHL.
I think this is a good starting point to reintroduce it. Obviously, they did this before. There was a lot of alcohol involved before, and the NHL isn't going to go back to that. They're not. They can't be that league that just lets their players go crazy and just pound beers while they're doing a fantasy draft. They can do that in their own time. But for this, I thought this is the way to do it. It really I'm not saying like in this, it's interesting how you brought up like the not doing it in an arena. I'm just saying a draft is the way to do it. Yeah. If you want to figure out where to do it, different things to do, you can do that, but you got to start somewhere. So I thought it was a really good start. And there are definitely things that need to get brushed up on, because I liked the layout. I liked how everything looked on the ice and how they had the players sitting on like benches. And then whenever team they got drafted to, they went over to that bench. And I'm sure it was told to the players before, but once you get out there, it's like, when you do public speaking, it's like, when you, and I've done it on this show where it's like, oh, I want to make sure I have a bullet point to say that. And then you forget to say it. So I think it's like, when the players went out, they all had their own podium. Nobody ever went to the podium. And that was like, that's what you do when you're making a pick, or if you're accepting an award, or you're speaking from, like, you go up to the podium. They were turned around. They were facing there's a stage behind them. And all of them would when they make their pick, because Buchagras was standing behind them, they'd turn around to him and like announce the pick to him. And you could tell a couple times he was like, don't look at me, look that way, because the cameras wanted to catch them saying, and you could see the camera angles were all crazy and out of whack because they weren't standing where they're supposed to. And I know they're not, they're not actors or anything like that, so they don't know where their mark is supposed to be. But that you got little things like that, which the setup was right, but they just would screw up on things like that because they're hockey players. They just want to play hockey. They don't care about the other stuff.
And I'll tell you, as somebody who's going to school for that kind of thing, the sportscasting and production side of things, the podium, that is literally what they're there for. It has nothing to do with making the pick. It is to give the camera a point of focus and keep everybody corralled around those. So for that, it kind of worked. But then the more it went on, you could tell that everybody was kind of, getting kind of fidgety, and then everybody forgets where they are. So it kind of got out of control, but it kept them in their little camps, which was what they wanted production wise.
Yeah.
But, and that's like why I would put it back in like a one table press conference style, because you can keep it that way and it doesn't get so lost. And another thing I would add on top of that, they need to cut some of those mics quick.
I even put up a tweet about that. Every single place. So there was like 3 or 4 people on each team's, little stage there. Every single one of them had one of like those ear mics, every one of them, and they weren't cutting them. So you had like cross conversations going on all of the time. And it was, I think it got better. Whoever is doing like the producing, like, I think they caught on to that and would, it got better as it went on, but you don't need that. You don't need that. Put a mic on the podium. Then they're forced to go to the podium and make the pick. And then, because the other part of it is you had this like talking and back and forth. And then when it's time to make the pick, like, you have to designate someone. You're the one who's going to be making the picks every time. And it would be like, well, all right, that's our pick. Who wants to say it? You say it. No, you say it. You say it. You say it. It's like, just say the stupid name. Just say it. And it was just, again, they're not like, they don't do this on a regular basis, but you had stuff like that. The other thing with ESPN right off the bat, and this is classic ESPN, just screwing things up for the NHL. It was who's going to be the number 1 overall pick. And let's cut to Wayne Gretzky, who's got a video and a card like they do with the the draft. And the video was jacked up. And that was how it started. And it was a video where it was like rewinding and fast forwarding. You could see who he's holding, but I'm sure he was saying something. You got no audio out of it. You got a video that's rewinding and fast forwarding 10 times. And then they were basically just like, oh, well, you saw it. Yep, it's Team Matthews or whoever it was that had, I think it was Team Hughes that had the first round pick. So it's like, off to a good start, ESPN. Thanks.
Yeah, that's one of those things that would be easily addressed in a dry run, and clearly was not done, just under the assumption of, oh, we got it, we know it'll play. And until the heat of the moment, it did not. So that's it's wonderful. It's one of those things that you keep the All-Star Game is honestly to bring in the fringe fans, and it's a point like, what are you competing with on a night like tonight when it comes to television? You're not competing with a lot. So this is a good way to showcase the game. And if you're fumbling things right out of the gate, and like what we're talking about, the hot mics, like, you don't want typical hockey talk being broadcast on television. So you kind of want, like, when I worked in radio, every time there was a penalty called, you would pull down the mics that were near the boards because you were going to have to dump whatever came out. Like
Mhm.
you want the NHL to put their best foot forward. So you hope next year they clean up a little bit of this, but we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. And I don't know. I didn't see a lot of people talking about this. For me, and my cable is YouTube TV. That's who I
Hmm.
use for my cable service. For me, it was like somewhere in the second round of picks, just went straight to a commercial in the middle of a pick. And it showed about 2 commercials, and then it came right back like nothing ever happened, and it was in the middle of a pick. I don't know, and that's not like, I don't get like local cable subscription. I'm getting YouTube. So I didn't see anybody else talk about that. And that was just, I mean, it happened for 30 seconds, but still, it was just another screw up on somebody's end there. I don't know who's to blame for that, but it happened. So
Yeah, don't tell me
oh well.
we all zoned out and we all missed that too.
Don't, yeah.
We already
Don't
checked out
tell
at
me
the second round.
that. Exactly. All right. Let's talk about Nathan MacKinnon's team, who he picked, and then we'll get to we'll finish up our midseason grades with our defenseman and Alexandar Georgiev. So we will do all of that next. All right, let's hear from FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Happy Super Bowl to all those who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because if you're like Kyle and myself, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And one thing that I guess I'm looking forward to it, but not in the usual sense, Kyle, is a lot of people, you always get those people that tune into the Super Bowl for just the commercials. I just care
Mm,
about the commercials. I want to see some good commercials this year because I don't feel like the commercials have been good over the past 5 or 6 years.
I agree. It's
Yeah,
we need commercials. Good Super Bowl commercials again,
right.
please.
Right. Don't dumb the humor down. Make them good and funny and not bad.
Puppy Monkey
That's all I
Baby Part 2.
yeah, stuff like that. Exactly. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. And not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, so much more. Prop bet heaven over at FanDuel. New customers that join today, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So just visit fanduel.com/locked on to sign up. That's fanduel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so let's just look at
Oh, I do believe Chris is frozen. And I believe he's about to start talking about Nathan MacKinnon's selection amongst uh, the group of his peers and his fantasy all-star team.
that is
Uh,
exactly what I was just going to do.
it's give it all the hype you want, because I mean we've all seen the infographics. I can't
Yeah.
wait for you to list this team, and I want you to tell me why Nathan MacKinnon. I think he just lost the heart with this draft.
Oh no, really? You think they're going to take this into consideration?
I think
Wow. All
it's
right.
going to be right down to the wire between him and Kucherov, and they're going to look back at this draft and they say, "I don't know if he's that valuable."
Well, you got obviously Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. His first pick, surprise to no one, was Sidney Crosby, who a cute moment. Crosby was not there. So there was a little Sid that was there that skated up and took the jersey. It was kind of funny. And then he goes goalie with Alexandar Georgiev, and then he stays in the division and gets Kirill Kaprizov. That was kind of fun. Then he goes Sebastian Aho. He gets some heft and Tom Wilson. I'm not happy about that one. Backup goal, or not to say backup goalie, but his second goalie is Jeremy Swayman. And then he goes for a little bit more muscle with Travis Konechny. Funny one with Elias Lindholm. So Lindholm changes teams again. And then the last pick is Oliver Bjorkstrand from Seattle. And the last round, how they did it was just they had 4 guys. They all gave them like an envelope, and they all opened it one at a time to reveal who was the team that they were on. So no feelings got hurt for being the very last pick. It was the last 4 picks. So, and Bjorkstrand is the last one that went on Team MacKinnon. I'm not crazy about the team. I got to be honest with you. And that's the other problem with this, Kyle, is so many guys went with their teammates. The team Matthews took all Maple Leafs. Team Hughes took all Canucks and Devils. And I had one person on Twitter was like, well, they didn't take Lindstrom. I'm like, okay, well, Lindstrom's been a Canuck for 10 seconds. I'm not going to count him. I don't like that. I don't like it. And MacKinnon did take Georgiev. I think that's got to be a rule next year. What's that?
I said he's got Cale,
and he's already got Cale. So all the Avalanche are together. All of the Maple Leafs are together. All of the Hughes brothers, along with their teammates, are together. I think that's got to be a rule next year. Is you get to pick like one guy from your team or something along those lines, because that kind of takes the fun of it away from me. I'm sorry, it does.
And I agree. I think I'd go a step farther. I think one team.
Oh, hang on, you're buzzing now too. We're having great connection. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
I think we have to take it a step further. I think if it's like one team per All-Star selection, like if it's Nathan MacKinnon's team, no other Avalanche. The end. He is our lone Avalanche. And then you put them on other teams. That's where it gets fun.
It could. I mean, that's really strict rules, but I'm sure they want to play with at least maybe one of their teammates if they could. But it's just crazy. That's not fun having all the Maple Leafs on the same team. They do that anyway.
Yeah.
So whatever, but it is what it is. As far as the MacKinnon team, I don't know, man. I'm not super crazy about it. Yeah, you got him and Makar and Crosby. MacKinnon and Crosby would be fun to see. Kaprizov was with them last year. Aho is maybe the only guy that's their scorer. So, when MacKinnon's not out there, and maybe I'm sure MacKinnon and Crosby are going to play on a line together, and whoever their third is, if it's
Cale,
Kaprizov or Aho, after that, you're going to be struggling to score. You're going to be knocking guys out, but you're going to be struggling to score.
Well, don't worry. They're not going to worry about scoring because they got Georgiev in net. They're going to be knocked out in the first round. They don't have to worry about playing deep.
I know. So, I mean, and overall, it doesn't really matter. I know this is a fun thing, but it is, I feel, an underwhelming team, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think I liked Michael Bublé's team and the Hughes boys. I think that was probably the best team of the night.
I mean, it is a good team. I think McDavid has got a good team. A lot of people don't. There was someone that did like percentages, and he was like the lowest percent, or maybe Matthews was the lowest and McDavid was the second lowest. But whatever, they were all pretty close anyway. I don't know. I think McDavid's got a pretty good team. All right, let's dive in now to finish up our midseason grades, defenseman and Alexandar Georgiev. We'll start right off at the top, sir. Why not? Get Makar and Taves out of the way. Which one? You want to do Cale first?
Let's do Cale.
All right. What do you got for Mr. Makar?
I feel like Cale is an A.
Yeah.
I know it'd be easy to say A plus, but no, he is an A. He's not. He hasn't had we've talked about it on the show, hasn't had that all hail Cale moment. He doesn't feel like he's 100% yet. So I'm going to give him a flat A, but I mean, he's flirting with the A plus.
Absolutely. I mean, he's 44 games played, 12 goals, 46 assists, 58 points. Come on now. That's for a defenseman. Like, I think sometimes people are just expecting him to be ungodly night in and night out. For the most part, he is. Yeah, maybe he hasn't had that all hail Cale moment, but those are special. Those are special moments that when they happen, yeah, you're like, oh, there it is. But they don't. It's just the nature of the sport. It doesn't happen every single night. But what he is doing is continuing to be the greatest defenseman in the league.
Yeah, and before everybody, I hear everybody on YouTube on their keyboard, I'm only giving him a flat A because this is the first year I can remember watching Cale Makar lapses. And you've never seen that before. Like, it's usually we tout his hockey IQ, his defensive positioning, and he's made some bad hockey moment decisions. And this is the first year it's been noticeable. It's why he has an A, but my goodness, it's still Cale Makar. So let's not lose our mind over that. It's a flat A, but he will be an A+ by the end of the year, and we're going to be relying on him in the playoffs.
And then, his line mate or pairing mate, whatever you want to call it, Devon Taves, he is 4th on the team in scoring. That's a little bit surprising to me because, that's not his forte. I mean, he can score, but not at the clip of someone like Nathan MacKinnon. But the drop off is noticeable between, Cale Makar is at 58 points and he's 3rd on the team in scoring. Devon Taves is 4th on the team in scoring and he's down to 29. That's a huge drop off. And when you have your 2 defensemen at 3 and 4 on your team in scoring, not typically what you want, but it's, needed for now anyway. And Taves continues to, just like Cale Makar, just continues to do what he's doing. So is Devon Taves. He's got an A from me as well.
Yeah, and that's another flat A. He's playing really, really well. And keep in mind, this is off a brand new contract, so he's not relaxing into cruise control. Mm-hmm. He's looking great. Like, that's a flat A line.
Totally agree. All right, we got those 2 out of the way. Let's just jump in a quick break here, and then we'll get to the rest of the defenders and Mr. Alexandar Georgiev. We'll do that next. All right, continuing with our midseason grades and our defensemen. Next up, we will do, let's see, Sammy G and Erik Johnson. So out of those 2, which one would you like to tackle here first?
Jack. Let's go with
what did I say? Did I say Erik Johnson? Oh my God.
It'll be Jack.
I can't believe I said Erik Johnson. I just want him back here.
We've done it for years. So
please come back.
Let's get Jack. Right. Let's get Jack out of the way because I feel like this is a quick conversation.
Okay. What do you got?
I feel like Jack has been C-, almost D.
Wow. What? Really? Why? Please go ahead.
Somebody who we're not going to be giving a grade to because he hasn't played enough games, but Sam Malinsky's taking your job. And it's usually, if you can lose your job, that means you're not doing too good at your job. And there has been, yes, he's been serviceable. He's been great. He's been wonderful. He's a great presence out there. But the Avalanche can do better and are going to be doing better and will do better with a completely healthy 100% team. And he hasn't been a game changer. He hasn't had an oh my God moment. I mean,
never does though.
Yeah,
never does though.
I don't need a pylon out there. You need a little bit.
Go ahead.
There's been stretches where you need a little bit of a help and a little bit of a push. And yes, he's there. And I'm not throwing him a D- like F category, trade him now, but this Avalanche team, there's been times they need to rely on somebody to just hold the fort and push. And he's not, what he gives you is what he's going to give you. Right. And you just need a little bit more. And there's been times they needed anybody. And Malinsky could give you so much more.
And I think that's where, like, the thing with Malinsky is, like, all that stuff that you were just saying about, like, what you want out of Jack Johnson is not what he gives you. And that's not what they're expecting him to give you. Malinsky, it's looking like he could potentially do that. You're saying, like, a guy that just needs, like, a little bit of, like, a push. He's not out there when they need that stuff. Like, at the end of the game, like, that's not his role. Again, I kind of agree with you in the fact that, Malinsky is, like, coming for your job, and next year he will have it. But we'll see how the rest of this season plays out. But for me, I never thought I'd say this. And this might be the biggest discrepancy we've had in grades between one player. I'm giving Jack Johnson a B+ right now. Giving him a B+. I think he has been great this year for what he does. I don't want to say he's great in comparison to the other defensemen on this team, like a Cale Makar or a Devon Taves. For what you need Jack Johnson to do, how many times in the past have we just gone just wanted to like rip our hair out of our heads because he's just making stupid decisions on defense. He's not doing that this year. I think he is playing very solid defense. He's got a pretty good slap shot when he leans into that. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities to rip that, but when he does, he's firing it on net. He's not there for his scoring. I am very happy with what Jack Johnson is doing this year. Again, next year probably won't be here. And because of what Sam Malinski is doing, and Sam Malinski is doing all those things that you said, and that's what the Avalanche need from their defensemen. Jack Johnson doesn't give that to you all the time. Malinski can. So that guy that can be out there and just another dangerous weapon is what Malinski can do. Jack Johnson's not that. He's not that dangerous weapon like you're saying. I totally agree with you in there. But do I have confidence now when Jack Johnson's out there that he'll give you a solid shift of defense? Yeah, I do. And I did not think that was going to happen when they brought him back in. I'm happy with him. Very happy with him.
Well,
I'm really looking forward to the conversation on this one. It might be in two camps. People are probably going to agree with you, and there's going to be some people that agree with me. I don't know if anybody's like towing the line, but honestly, how many shows have we done following a game where we're like, Jack Johnson doesn't know what the heck he's doing out there? It hasn't happened. Hasn't happened this year.
But again,
we're halfway through the season. I'm fine with it yet. If it happens, it's happened somewhere in the 50th game of the year. I'm fine with that.
But I remember the losing streaks and where nothing was going right, and you needed a jolt, and you needed something else, and you know what you're getting out of Jack Johnson is it.
Right. Yeah. So if you need a jolt, why are you turning to Jack Johnson? Turn to Nathan MacKinnon, turn to Mikko Rantanen, turn to Cale Makar. Like, those are the guys you're turning to. Jack Johnson, if you got to turn to Jack Johnson, you're in trouble.
Well, then why why do we have you out there?
You're managing the game. He is throughout the course of the game, you're out there to manage it, to be the third line pairing for defensive pairing. That's why you're out there. End of story. Period. You're not out there to do you're not out there for us to rely on you. And again, I'm agreeing with you in the point where it's like, hey, looks like a guy that's coming up behind you could be that guy in some capacity. So that'll be nice when that happens, because now you're just that much more of a dangerous team. But for what they're getting out of Jack Johnson, just to manage the game for the 12 minutes he's out there, 13 minutes out there, zero complaints. That's where I'm at. Can't take it away from me. Don't try to change my mind.
I won't.
Okay. Sammy G, there's another one. What do you got for Sammy so far this year?
I feel like he's right on that line, but I'm giving him a C+.
Mm-hmm.
He's been good. He hasn't been bad. He's been serviceable. He's been just fine. And I think his skill does not come up in the points total. It's the drive, no. It's the transitions, it's keeping the play alive and pinning the puck in deep. So I like what he adds and his extra little wrinkle of defensive coverage. I like Sammy G for that. So I'm giving him a C+, right on the line of a B-.
And I think that's what I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him the B-.
Okay.
You know, and even taking into account him going into the player assistance program, not that factors into his grade or anything like that, but coming back from that, I thought he's looked good. He's a guy that great transition guy. Sure, he's undersized. I like watching him play defense.
I do too.
I feel like when he's defending a guy and someone is shifting and hockey stopping, going the other direction, he sticks with them. He's one of the best at doing that. His reaction time is great in that capacity. So the scoring part of it, he's never been that guy. You know, he's pretty good with assists, which is funny that he doesn't have at least a few more goals, because he does take a good amount of shots towards net for a defender, but they just never seem to get through traffic when it comes to his shots for whatever reason. But I think he's the Sam Girard of a couple years ago that everybody just wanted to just rush out the door. And I can understand why during that time period. He's overcome that stuff. and I think he's been a really solid defenseman and what they've needed from him for this season so far. So,
and all the OG Locked On Avalanche fans, the everydayers that go back years, Sammy G, official player of the Locked On podcast.
That's right.
Like
he was the favorite.
Yep,
he was the
favorite
guy. Yep. The last two here for the defense, Josh Manson, and we'll do Bo Byram as well. We'll start with Manson. I think he's been really good this year, Kyle.
I do too.
Really good.
I'm giving him a B-.
Okay. He's got 44 games played, six goals, 11 assists for 17 points. Let me open up his player card even more, because I wonder where those 6 goals stand for him as far as career high. So he had 7 back in 17-18, and that's his career high. So he's got 6. So he's close to that. Yeah, he's giving you a little bit more of a scoring touch this year. He's playing really good defense. Would you give him a B-?
Yes.
I'm gonna go B+, hovering on A-. I think he's been great this year defensively. A couple of mistakes with penalties, some untimely penalties by him. You can clean that stuff up, but from his defensive play, I think he's been great, and he's throwing in a little bit of offense here and there, which is awesome.
And the B-, it was a weird start to the year. He finally got in gear and has been great. Like, my only complaint with Manson, yes, he has his defensive coverage is great. The plays he makes are great, but he's very win or go home. Like, the moves and decisions he makes, it's either going to land or it's going to be a problem. But they land more than they're a problem. But when they're usually crucial, and they're highlight reel as you're rewatching the goal scored on. There's Manson skating. So I give him the B- there, but he's cleaned it up from the beginning of the year. He's become essential, and I love his play, and he'll probably finish the year with a much higher grade.
Yeah, no, he's been very committed to it this year. So it's really nice to see. And then Bo Byram, good old Bo, 41 games played, 6-6, 6 goals, 6 assists, 12 points for Mr. Bo Byram. What do you got here, man? This could be an interesting one.
This is going to a D+.
That bad, really?
It's Bo has regressed when it comes to. It's just, and it's a regression coupled with bad, like the penalties. There was a stretch that it was every game a delay of penalty, like a delay of game penalty, and for all the hype going into what is Bo going to do, what can he be? Can you imagine Cale and Bo on the same team? It's been a regression in every single facet of the game, and it's just not. It's not there, and I fully believe he could take a step up, but for right now, at the midseason point, this has been a big time step back year for Bo and Byram.
It's crazy because it seems like Bo has not taken the spot of Sam Girard, of the defenseman of the Colorado Avalanche that is like the whipping boy for the Colorado Avalanche fan base, but he kind of has, and I think a lot of it has to do with kind of like decision making and play. And there was a time early in the season where, how I'm saying, like, I'm pretty confident with Jack Johnson out there. You didn't have that with Bo. It was just he could look amazing on a shift and then follow it up with, like, what the heck was he thinking there? So, and I don't know if that was some of just like early season, got to work things out, which again, I don't jump to conclusions too early in a season. But this roller coaster of a season that it was for the Avalanche earlier in the year seems to be continuing for Byram. I still love the guy. I think he can pull himself out of this if he can just, stay healthy and just play more consistently, which we've seen him do. So, I mean, the grade that I would give him right now, I'm in like the C-, even C area, because I don't think he's been god awful. But has he been what they expected him to be? Definitely not. And I even think he would tell you that. So it's kind of where I'm at with Bo Byram right now. I'm interested to see how the second half of the season goes for him.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he get his first goal in that Islanders game where they got the road record? I think that might
I
have
don't
been
remember. Maybe.
It's just
Yeah.
a slow start, and then everything putting together has just been weird and not right. But again, I agree with you. Like, he can be better.
Oh,
He's
sure.
just gotta figure it out.
Yeah. So we'll see. One of the more interesting players I'm looking forward to watching, like I said, for the second half of the season. So, and then we'll wrap all this up with Mr. Alexandar Georgiev. We're not going to do any other goalie because it's really not worth it, because Prosvetov, I think, played in 10 or 11 games so far. You can't really grade him on that. This is all Georgiev. It's been a ride so far this year, Kyle. I don't know where you stand with him grade wise, but what do you got?
C, flat C. And
I'm with you,
honestly,
man. I'm with you.
and there is no justifiable stat that says he should be a C. He should be a D. But the man, he gets in there, he'll let in 3, then that's it. And the Avs have to work around that. It's the most toxic relationship in the game of hockey, Georgiev and the Colorado Avalanche. But he lets up and gives up, and the Avs work to make it work. It's terrible. It's a soap opera, but he's a C.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's on him, some of it's on the defense not playing well in front of him, and just letting the opponent get 40 shots on goal on him. It's not solely his fault, this C, but some of it is, obviously. Yep. And it goes back to those shots that you just, how many times you're just watching a broadcast and someone's like, I bet he'd like to have that one back. We've heard that so many. How we're not hearing what the heck was Jack Johnson doing out there. We're hearing Georgiev would have loved to have that one back. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like you don't know what you're going to get from him, and every shot is an adventure. So he started off the season hot as can be, cooled off, and it has been a wild ride since then. And he is right down the middle of a C, because he will look Vezina-like in a game, and then followed up that he looks like he's an AHL backup.
And I think the hot take, I think that's Nathan MacKinnon drafted him in this All-Star thing because he knew nobody else would. It's almost like playing Park League. It's like Park League basketball when you like pick your brother and you're like, I know everybody else, he's my little brother, nobody's going to draft him. So you do him a favor. I think Nate picked him because he didn't want him to be opening an envelope at the end of the broadcast.
The way that it worked for the draft is you had to have both of your goalies by the 8th round. So they were not going to, the envelope thing couldn't have been a goalie. But I get what you're saying. It would have been interesting to see if he did not take him for MacKinnon's team, who was going to take him. I didn't even think about that of where he would have fell, because that's an interesting. I mean, you have really good goalies in this thing. If it wasn't to MacKinnon's team, the free fall might have happened.
It would have.
Interesting. All right. That will wrap it up for today, everybody. Fire away in the comments section with any of your grades. And what do you think of Team MacKinnon? You think they're going to do okay? Anybody that you wish that he did take other than Sidney Crosby, let us know. All right. That is going to wrap it up for the week, really. So we'll be back on Monday. We'll have a show for Monday. Like I said, I am going to that game in New York City for the Rangers, so we probably won't have a show on Tuesday, but we'll have one ready for you on Monday. And anything else that happens over the weekend, we'll be talking about it then. Until then, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. Enjoy the skills competition, the All-Star game, if you can. And we'll be back on Monday.